speakers for the evening.
Okay, David, I should ask you, you're okay with this meeting being recorded and then shown on our website? You're muted, David.
Okay, yes, that's fine.
You're okay? Yeah, we normally do that with our presentations. And usually I forget to ask people if they have a problem with that, because once it's on the website, it is available to the public as well as members.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, good. So anyway, we are very happy to welcome back David and Diane Reesor. They've presented to us on several occasions. In recent years, they've taken us to Ethiopia, Sri Lanka, and Madagascar. And their journeys are always very entertaining. The photography is wonderful. And because they like to get into the culture of the countries, we learn a lot about what they have seen and learned there. There's a bio in the newsletter. But if anybody hasn't seen it, I'll do a really quick summary here. Diane, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, has lived in remote villages in such diverse places as Dominica in Windward Islands and Nunavut. And she's done some very challenging treks in her time, including in Nepal. And her interest in photography really started when she met David. David's been interested in photography since the age of 10, when he got his first little brownie camera. But he has won a Best Canadian Amateur Photo of the Year for underwater photography. And he's also co-authored a book, obviously written with an African guide, because it's Predator, Life and Death in the African Bush. Travel and photography are a really integral part of their lives. And since COVID has curtailed their travel, they've been continuing with their photography, taking photos of murals around Vancouver. And as we know, there are lots of those and they're really quite wonderful. But they've also been taking photos of the public art in North Vancouver. Tonight, they're going to share with us their photos and insights on two quite different islands, Iceland and Newfoundland. And the two things that those islands do have in common are that they have some wonderful bird life and they have icebergs. So I'm going to turn it over to them in a second, but before I do that, I'd just like to say that they will take questions after the presentations. So if you want to use the chat function to record your questions, we'll go through them later. And the other thing is that David and Diane have once again given DNS a signed Robert Bateman calendar. Now, at the moment, I have that calendar and I'd like to keep it, but I'm not going to do that. On the 15th, when we have our executive meeting, we'll come up with some kind of a plan, since we don't have in-person meetings and can't do 50-50 things. We'll come up with some kind of method for determining who the lucky recipient of that calendar will be. And we'll send something out as soon as we've done that. So stay tuned for that one. So I'll now turn it over to David and Diane to take us to Iceland and Newfoundland.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for asking us to do the presentation. Excuse me. The first one will be Newfoundland. We actually traveled there in 2001, and this was our first long trip. Lasted 5 weeks, and Newfoundland Labrador. The show will be 28 minutes long. Newfoundland is quite quaint. There will be some text to read and also some sounds. And at the end of it is a video of the 9/11 situation in Newfoundland when all the planes landed there from the events in New York. And you know, it'll be self-explanatory and about how big Gander airport is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's, and when we were there, we were in a camper van, and then we got a freighter boat to Labrador, and it was the first supply boat in the spring bringing in supplies to the Labrador coast, which is now accessible by road, but then it wasn't. And as we watched them unloading things, the most prevalent thing that they took up there was beer and potato chips. So, okay, do I share screen?
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen. Click that one, the recent photography. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Perfect. And you can hit play.
Should be going now, shouldn't it?
Oh, we can see your screen.
Okay.
Just in the middle screen, make sure your remote's working.
Yeah. So we're in June 2001. I assume, is that big enough for everyone to read?
It looks fine.
Interesting, Christopher Columbus was 400 years behind the Vikings coming into North America. There's a house with the widow's walk at the top, which is where the wives would wait for their husbands to come home from fishing. And of course, there was a lot of tragedies in those years. Everything's well maintained. Houses look good. Oh, Cape Spear, the most easterly point in North America. World War II, they installed cannons in these locations. That's not the place it would have been when it was operational. It would have been higher. So there was our home for 5 weeks. Home of Captain Bartlett. He commanded Perry's boat to the North Pole. That's a storage place for his garbage pails instead of putting them out in the street. And you'll see that a lot of people in Newfoundland have too much time on their hands.
Leftover from Christmas.
Yeah. So a lot of the places that all these articles on their front lawns, well maintained. And very quaint place names: Heart Desire, Heart's Delight, Heart's Content. Also, the first transatlantic cable came in Newfoundland. There's a fishing boat under construction. Still made of wood and all hand done. Other names: Greens Harbor, Dildo. Managed by the Harbor Authority. So they held a referendum here once to change the name, and they said, no, we had the name first. Lobster traps. Remains of the old fort. Again, this is on a fellow's front lawn, pretty big sized boat. Modern museum.
A museum in every town.
Speak up there. I'm going to launch this boat. Another quaint town come by chance. That's cod. Attic. So we retained a fellow that we went out to his camp here to watch for caribou and bird life on some of the small islands. He's a lawyer by trade and does this as a sideline. Humpback whales. It's fine for them. So the guide dropped us off on a small island where the chicks were being born. We just laid down and took photographs for a while. So Saint Pierre Miquelon is France's oldest overseas territory. It's 2 small islands. One of the ferry boats. So these 2 islands had the distinction of during Prohibition, they were huge suppliers of alcohol into the United States. These are all the fishermen shacks. They can pull their boats up into them. And that's how they crank them up by hand, manually. So Prohibition Warehouse, 1928. Trinity, one of the oldest settlements in North America. And
Victoria.
can you speak up? These are lobster traps. Alliston is the root capitals of the world, root cellar capital of the world. So this is the seashore with 600 million year old rocks. John Cabot landed here. Lighthouse under repair. So they do laugh at themselves. That's a Newfie swing on the left. Another novel named Joe Bat's Arm. Jerry's Nose. So here's some of the names.
Tilting, seldom tilting. Dab the Bell Cove. Bumblebee Blight. Witless Bay. Tickle Cove. Random Island. Quiddy Viddy. Tickle Harbor. Back Tickle. Conception Bay. Cupids. Comfort Cove. Happy Adventure.
Virgin Cove. Little
Little-
Heartsease.
Yeah. Muddy Hole. Dildo. Little Seldom.
Capelin, these are small fish caught, and either the females, I think it's the females that get sent to Japan. I was just helping a local fisherman with his racks. This is how he catches them, throws a big net out. So we're on land here, and this is how close the iceberg is. This is called Iceberg Alley. Lobster traps. Dover crash was a patrol vessel or aircraft in World War II, and it crashed, and all survived. So the fishermen catch their fish and then clean them in there and then drop their remains through the hole into the ocean. This is a soapstone quarry site, so they're chinking out pieces of soapstone for carvings.
This is from the Dorset civilization.
There's two pieces that haven't been taken out.
Black duck siding.
Gravel operation down near the water.
A lot of the lawn ornaments are very patriotic, white and red. Halfway Point.
Grossmore National Park. Explain this.
This is at Cow Head, and they have a local story that was made into a musical, and the locals put on the musical and then served us dinner. The staff, the actors were serving us dinner, and then we liked the play so much, we decided to stay another 2 days so we could say yet another play that they had. It was really, both of them were excellent, excellent indeed.
So there was this boat that I'll just explain the boat. The boat crashed on the shore, and they couldn't get ashore. And finally, they tied a rope to a dog, and the dog swam ashore so they could get a line to shore so that everyone could get rescued off the boat. And then they made a play about that, or a musical.
They refer to this as one of the purest lakes in the world, but they refer to it as a pond.
So it's fresh water, no connection to the sea. The fishermen.
Room Point. Nameless Cove.
And lobster traps. So people cut the wood during the winter so they can skid it in. They leave it on the.
They cut it in the summer. They
Go
cut
ahead.
it in the summer, and then they leave it there, and then they can take their skidoos in to take it back to the house.
And it's on the side of the highway and nobody steals it. There's one of the skids they use to move it. That's drops of water in the plant.
These are little gardens that are in the sloping areas by the highways. Blow Me Down Provincial Park.
So one of the places we stayed at, we had to take a boat. This is a lighthouse. And so we stayed overnight for a night in here. It was a little rough getting into it.
And we stayed with a couple from New York. They had just arrived the day before.
This is Fogo Island. It's a very luxurious resort, very expensive. St. Shots. Earliest known presence in
North America.
North America. This is a reconstruction of what it would have looked like.
And the enactors are in costume and they're talking a language that seems to be of Vikings with a heavy accent and telling us what they were doing. Stretching a pelt.
Gannets. With a chick. So this is the boat we took to go to Labrador. That's the captain dancing with Diane. That's one of the stop offs there, population 265. Now, we gotta remember, this is the first boat in of the season after the winter with supplies.
He's not sure he wants to go down. This is the author of the book, Charlottetown. He talks about Newfoundland coast. There's the beer.
And plywood.
And goats.
Rigolette. All-terrain vehicles. There's people coming to greet the boat. So canoes, boats.
Each sunset depicts another day that we were on the boat.
There's your beer again. These are wolves, huskies. And they're all chained up, can't move very far. So a carving we bought from that fellow, and Diane's holding it there and brought it home.
The graveyard seemed to be right where the people used to live.
A bit of a weathered stop sign. A little bit of tragic story in this one. This is a Native Indian or Eskimo area. The youngsters have got into sniffing gasoline out of green garbage bags. And once you do it, it's irreparable damage. And we weren't allowed on shore, and no one from the location was allowed on the boat.
The Innu were originally hunters of caribou inland people, but with the settlement situation that they had, they told them they had to come and live on the ocean, and they didn't have their traditional way of coping, and it's caused a great deal of disintegration for that group.
Shrimp.
Owned by a Chinese consortium.
And they load up these little boats. So these photographs are all taken from shore or from the boat we're on. Battle Harbor was an old fishing town, I guess. It's been fairly reconstructed, much more reconstructed today than it was 20 years ago. So these are all cardboard cutouts. They've done the photographs, blown them up to a huge size, and have them around the town.
The federal government put a lot of money into the restoration of this town.
That's fish drying racks in that far island. Cemetery. So this is the video.
When the World War II broke out, the RCAF moved into that
Does
area.
it sound okay?
So I grew up surrounded by the Royal Canadian Air Force. And it was a stop mainly for bombers. And thousands of heavy bombers were delivered through Gander. After the war, the next big thing was the development of North Atlantic passenger traffic.
Gander was like a Panama Canal at the time. All air routes led through Gander, which is what caused this new airport and this mid-modernist room to be built. Well, I mean, the lounge here is pretty close to a perfect time capsule since it was opened with the blessing of the Queen in 1959.
I thought to myself, maybe I'll go moose hunting. So I seen the second plane hit, and I came to work, and I was here for 36 hours. There were people up on the planes up to 24 hours. The airport had the parking spaces, and the people here to help. Stranded here, you might have been talking to a volunteer, and they say, well, come on with us now. Eat with us. We'll take you around the town. And there is people that come back and visit these people to this day.
I don't think anyone back then was making casseroles and sandwiches with the thought that this would inspire a musical. Or
If you get a chance to see the musical, it's fantastic.
There's so much novelty with this big oversized airport and such a small town accommodating so many people. But it was nothing that anyone else wouldn't have done.
And this is a book about 9/11 in Gander.
I know how to.
All right, let's stop.
Okay, can everybody hear me again?
Yep, looks like you're back in business.
Okay, any questions or comments on Newfoundland?
Your show's going.
No?
There was one question, maybe I'll get it later, okay?
Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead with Iceland. 28 minutes. We were there in 2002. You're going to see again some unique things. And each town has public art, swimming pool, and a museum, and a Lutheran church.
And a swimming pool.
Let me see. I think that's it. So we'll start it and then I'll just make comments. Sound still working?
We can hear you, but I haven't heard any sound from the recording.
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, there isn't any yet from the recording. So land of fire, ice and light. So the outside line, we took a 2-week boat trip around the island, 50, 60 people. And then the line in the inside is then Diane and I had our own vehicle and we did the whole around the island, called the island route. So every town, as you approach it, has a sign indicating that's a city or town coming up. This is Reykjavik. And you will notice one thing, or actually you won't notice one thing there. There are no chimneys. Everything's done by geothermal.
This is the Lutheran Church Archbishop's Palace up there. And that wasn't a saint, that was Leif Erikson in front, apparently.
Daniel, this isn't in front of them, is it? This isn't interfering with them, is it? So this is where Nixon and Gorbachev met to discuss the nuclear arms restrictions. Now, Iceland, subject to a lot of earthquakes, and a few years ago to volcanoes going off. The island, now I'll just interrupt that for a second. You see that sort of the dots on the buildings there? Those are bolts that go right through to help prevent damage during earthquakes. And they do have a lot of earthquakes. The island is actually separating 2 to 3 centimeters per year. And there's the Widow's Walk at the top, the same as in Newfoundland. So every town you come into, this is a reminder to obey the speed limit. Geothermal power plant. This one supplies hot water to Reykjavik. So the pipes going up the hill to the right go to Reykjavik. Greenhouses, they grow everything there, pineapples, bananas, and a little comedy as you go into the greenhouse. But the greenhouses are everywhere. This is where the name geyser came from. This is a comedian that built a house out there just to show it. That house is only 2 feet high. So this is a geyser welling up. You notice how the water forms a dome, and then the air inside starts to expand and it'll burst. And that's superheated water. Safest money in the world, no one can get it. Water is just below boiling. Craters, once they blow there, they fill up with water. This is a plaque dedicating a woman that her father was going to let them build a hydropower dam on the river. And she said, and you'll see where it is, if you build it, I'm going to throw myself into over the waterfalls. So that's where they wanted to put it. And she was successful. They didn't build it.
An old church. This is a stone with runic writing. Also runic writing.
That was the boat we took around the island. A recent volcanic activity. Fish drying. I think this is walrus meat. That stone's there just to hold the canvas over the boat. Sea lion. This fellow's half a mile from shore, wading out, and it's only knee deep. So even though we're on an iceberg, they don't like to plow through these things. So it's very slow. Barbecue. And
This is the northern island off the coast of Iceland. Jan Man. And this fellow is pretending to be a prisoner with a ball and chain. And all the tourists, of course, are just irate that he's there. And they tell it's a joke.
hot tub. This is a recent lava flow, recent being in the last 10 years. So the crew gets out for their first day in the boat and they tear around a little bit. That's one of our boats out there close to the glacier.
So New York is 4,000 kilometers away. This is a village festival where they put children into the lifeboat, a life preserver, and then
shoot them across the bay. So they shoot him up to the far side. This kid said, I'm not going in that contraption.
Mm-hmm.
This we're hiking up to photograph some auk birds. This used to be a whaling station. And we're hiking up into the cliffs there to photograph birds, seabirds. This is a grass enclosed house, not just the roof, walls and everything. That rock on the left is just full of birds. So this is the size of their fishing boats. So this is the eruption that took place on Vestmeyer. Vestmeyer is a natural harbor. This is the pilot boat coming into the harbor, just pounding through. And this is a very natural harbor. That's the pilot boat coming out to our boat. Free Willy was put in here for the last years of his life. This is the town of West Mayan. Now, these are not photographs we took, obviously. These were quite some time ago. Anyway, the eruptions started happening and they were worried about losing their natural harbor. And it's incredible. Look at this. They're wanting, this is ash on their homes, buried. They bring in supplies to all the workers. So they're watching their homes burn. The lava just engulfed everything. All that's left of that house is the garage. And that's the molten lava coming down the side. And they thought they were going to lose the harbor. They got 50 of these water pumps and to spray salt water, hoping to stop the lava from coming in and destroying the town and the harbor. That was their water supply, their big water tank. There's the island being born. No one allowed on it except scientists, even today. As I say, the island's splitting apart 3 centimeters a year. That's flowing lava, very slow. But you know, they built a road quickly right across the lava field. Very dangerous to walk in this. It's very sharp. If you break through it, you'll just shred your leg. So the harbor was saved. That was a group that was on the expedition vessel. We went around the outside of the island. This is recent lava flows.
This is an old Viking settlement. And from here, they came to America. And this is the lady that gave birth to the first child born in North America.
First European child.
Yeah, sorry.
So every town's got some artwork. These are whale bones.
These are Icelandic horses.
Very tough animals. They've saved a lot of lives over the years. And if a pony is exported, he's not allowed to come back. So they keep the breed this pure.
A very modern church. A cemetery.
The contractor that put the road through built this. So these signs are along the interior highways in winter, so it shows you what the road conditions are and the temperature. This is a survival hut. It's full of food, water, warm clothing, gasoline and so forth. No one steals it because your life may depend on that supply being there in the middle of winter if you get stranded. There's a lady watering her roof to get the grass to grow on it.
Lots of waterfalls.
They speak about 3 to 7 languages. This is a museum. Fish drying racks beside the highway. That freighter was blown up in a bad storm and it's lost forever. White sand. That's the road along the side of the cliff. Yeah.
Oh, there's a memorial to a loss of a boat and the fishermen. This is an old replica Viking ship. White sand beaches.
Unfortunately, the water is a little cooler than the white sand beaches in Hawaii.
Lots of these little isolated villages that are 1 or 2 homes only.
So this is going to show you the size of these ponies. And they shed their hair, actually. They go quite a coating in the wintertime. Very friendly. Quite a few different types of colorations. Fighting for control of the herd. That gives you an idea of the size of them.
They're taller than Shetland ponies, but they're shorter than regular horses.
So this is a corral. They let the sheep go wild. And then in the springtime, when they bring them into the center. And there's a door into each of the outside sort of slices of the pie. So they pick the name off the sheep as to who owns it, and it goes into that farmer's pen. And that's a modern one. You're going to see an older one in a minute. It's stretching out. Pretty obviously what that is.
This used to be a seminary for Lutheran priests. It's now a hotel.
This is the second largest town in Iceland.
Akureyri. Lupin.
Shows you the height of the people when hundreds of years ago this was built. This is sod put sideways. It's great insulation. It's probably about 12 inches thick. Waitress in one of the cafes we went into.
And this is a Russian Orthodox church.
So already they're cultivating the field in the back. Greenhouses. Spectacular waterfalls. And you can get up close and personal with no guardrails. You can't see them, but Diane's surrounded by thousands of midges.
Midges. This is an old fence.
So that's an old, how they separated the sheep when they come in from the winter. The old system, now it's modern.
Can you just pause for a minute? With the midges, they are, as you know, small little tiny insects, and when they die, they go on this particular lake, they fall to the bottom, and it's a very lucrative business up there. They dredge the bottom of the dead midges, and it's used in cosmetics.
And your toothpaste.
Right.
This is a volcano, but it's not lava, it's superheated water. So when it blew, it collapses back in and forms that circular cauldron. This is a street sign, so everyone's name that lives on that street is on this sign. And people don't move very often. Fish drying racks.
Public art. Public art.
Side of a fish packing plant. So every gas station has a car wash. You can wash your car. So this is sort of a volcanic area. It's very dangerous to walk on it. It's got boiling mud pots, similar to Yellowstone. You know, superheated water coming up.
Moss Campion.
This is volcanic bread. Those are ovens. So rather than put them in the stove, they get free heat in these ovens. They put the bread in there and bake it. It's called
volcano bread.
Volcano bread. And that's what it looks like. And it's heavy. So this is a field of thermonuclear power. And you'll see in a minute how they, so this is a similar to your car radiator, but this thing is 4 stories high. The hot water is so superheated, they have to use the radiator to cool it down so they can use it and pump it to, you know, the towns in Reykjavik. So they got big water lines built everywhere. So they're about 3 to 4 feet thick diameter. And they come to a road, they just go over it. Again, a cauldron that's filled up with water that was a volcano. This is an ash cone left. And you can see some people have gone into it and done some artwork, graffiti, I guess. This is the old road, and those markers were so you didn't get off the beaten path, so to speak. This is how you mow your roof, put some sheep on it. We stayed at this place, and you know, they cooked us meals, you fed the sheep. These are different areas of flows of lava that have occurred in this area. There's an old radar station that the Americans put up, not in use anymore. This is the end of a glacier and how it's retreated quite a bit. over the last 50 years. So this photographs a bridge that was across here, and the power, those are 14-inch steel girders just twisted with when the dam broke or the glacier or the volcano went off and then water came down. That's a church. This is, 10-year-old volcanic remains. You can't walk on it. You'll break through too easy.
And in the depressions, whenever they can, they're planting trees, trying to reforest themselves. This is the field where he walked across from one end, from the main town down to Reykjavik, Akiri to Reykjavik. And people, when they went, they would leave a rock.
So you can see there's been a lot of people trek through here.
Mhm.
Black sand beach.
And the churches are well attended there on Sundays. Another sod house of the old style.
Now these are dwellings, old Nordic dwellings.
And the walls are made of sod as well.
So the animals were down below, the people live up above, so the warmth of the animals would warm the people's homes. That's Diane standing in front of this waterfalls. Huge. I think that's the tallest one in Iceland. Another sign, street sign showing all the names of everyone's homes. Postmistress. This is a trinket we brought from Canada.
A seesaw.
This is a woman's backyard. She was quite proud to show us how well maintained she keeps it. So that's a power station there. And the river, that's the water coming out of it. And it goes down this huge channel out into the ocean.
This is an old style house, communal living.
And that's the roof. Now they filled it in.
A child's bed. And the loom with the rocks, stones tied for weights.
Volcanoes are slightly controlled, except the one that a few years ago virtually shut down all the airports in Europe. Interesting, the lava is sort of a green color. But look at their volcanoes going off and they're just standing around chatting like it was nothing.
This is at the end of every trail, at the trailhead, where you can wipe your boots. And there's a toilet at the trailhead. This is Angelica, and then in the starving days, they would eat the root. It's a very nutritious food. And this is Angelica when it's lost its blossoms. Violet, Viola. Looks like sedum.
Very stunted growth because of the limited growing season.
Gentian. Willow. This is a page from the sagas. They used to tell the story of the sagas at night around the fire. That was the entertainment. And the Danish people took the sagas and took them to Denmark, and they wanted, stop it, David. They wanted to have them back. And Denmark said, yes, you can have them back, providing you build a temperature controlled museum for them. And so they did that. And on the day that the Danish Navy brought the sagas back, it was declared a national holiday in Iceland, and everybody was at the dock at Reykjavik to see the sagas come back to their home. At the time when there was the famine, when they were eating Angelica bulbs and things like that, they were actually left to be boiling the covers of the sagas that were made with leather to eat. Apparently it was a very bad time for famine in their history.
Yeah, they've had quite a percentage of their population of sheep and humans lost over the years.
But I think Iceland has a reputation of being the most literate island. Number of books that are read and number of books that are written in Icelandic for such a small island. And when we went to the bank there to change money, there was not a great distance between us and the lady who had all the money stacked there in front of her.
50 different currencies.
50 different currencies, yes.
Okay, that's the end of it, that show.
And they also have a program where kids during the summer have to work. Depending upon their age, they get a job that's a full day or a half day. So they work all summer and they do a lot of planting. So there's a lot of greenery and flowers around everywhere. And at one point we were in a shopping center and this man, a young boy, came up and asked something of me. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't speak Icelandic. And he said, oh, have you got a
Jumper cables.
A jumper cable? They're very fluent. They have English comes in on the television with subtitles. The German television doesn't have subtitles, so people learn more English than they do learn German over there.
Okay, can I close this thing out, Danny?
Do you want to just, yeah, so stop sharing your screen?
Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Thank you, David and Diane. Those were fascinating shows. I've never been to Iceland. I have been to Newfoundland once and I just absolutely love the place. I love the people. I wish you hadn't told us about those midges because the thought of midges in my cosmetics.
Well, it's in the toothpaste.
The toothpaste is the worst one, yes.
That's why your
teeth. To identify it as the ingredient.
I don't think it says it on the box either.
I'm sure it doesn't. That's horrifying. But those were lovely presentations.
Before long, we'll all be eating midges.
Could be.
They didn't bother you. They just they flew all around you, but they didn't touch
You
you.
didn't bite?
No, nothing. They were minuscule little things, but just there were literally clouds of them. And for millions of years, they've been dropping into this lake. And, so now they're not midgets anymore. It's a 20-foot thick toothpaste factory.
Oh,
Good
dear.
source of protein.
Yes, yes.
No,
Thank you for the tour. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see that Ken Borey is our question man of the night.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are there many indigenous people there living there in Iceland? And also, are many of the Icelanders, non-indigenous, descendants from the Vikings at all? Do they claim any kind of linkage?
Oh, they do. And I think all the Icelandic people would say they're indigenous because
But they aren't.
they have been there for a long time. I don't think the Dorset or the Thule culture went over there, but they would be part of the Viking group as well.
When they were trying to populate Greenland and Iceland, the European countries switched the names. So because Greenland was not Greenland, but Iceland is. But they wanted to populate Greenland rather than Iceland. So they switched what the names were to be the more enticing. It was just, and they're the exact opposite.
Greenland has more ice and Iceland has more green.
Okay, so Ken Borey has some questions. His first question was from your first presentation. How long does it take by boat from Newfoundland to Labrador? And what are the names of the towns at each end?
Let's see, I think it would be St. Anthony at one end and another one at the top is Maine.
Okay, and
Can't remember how long it took.
No, but we were on that. It's not a wide passage between the two, but to go up the coast, I think it was 5 to 6 days.
wow.
It was probably half a day to get across to Labrador.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a long day, long time.
Well, you're on the boat, you're going to be on the boat for 5 or 10 days. So
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, and Ken again wanted to know what century Icelandic ponies were introduced and by whom?
Oh, good point. I don't know.
that we don't know.
No, don't know where they came from.
A question has popped up on the screen.
We'll have to do some Googling.
Okay.
And he was wondering if there were any signs in Reykjavik commemorating the 1972 Bobby Fischer Boris Spassky World Championship chess.
No.
No,
Didn't see any, and I was looking for it. Yes.
but there wasn't anything.
No.
That's interesting. And then Ken's last question was, did you see the Northern Lights when you were in Iceland?
No, we
No.
didn't. No, we didn't. We've seen them in Canada, but not in Iceland.
Probably in September wouldn't be the best
Long
time.
time of year, yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Val Fuller, is it Val Fuller or is it the other Val? It must be Val Fuller because Val Whitlam's not here, and I don't think. Why did the Canadian government move the Inuit to Davis Inlet?
Are you referring to the Innu people that
Yeah.
were? Well, it was the question of trying to bring education and health services to these nomadic tribes. The Innu people are not actually Inuit. They are considered First Nation Indian, not Inuit. And they were, as I say, migratory people. They followed the caribou and the moose, and they lived off the land. And in the Canadian government, in their wisdom, decided that these people needed to go to school, and there wasn't any way they could do that being
Nomads.
migratory people. So they moved them all down there, and it's been a very unhappy situation ever since. And the fellow who was in charge of taking off all the supplies from the ship, in every port there was a big forklift and there were trucks and everything else like that. This guy was reduced to taking things like refrigerators and mattresses off in a wheelbarrow, because he said they just take off all the tires and they ruin the trucks, and I'm left with a wheelbarrow. It was jerry-rigged in order to take something like a refrigerator off, but and we saw, when we were there looking through our porthole, there was a young man from the village who came up with a cod in his hand and went to all the windows of all the people and shook the cod at him, and he was totally out of it. And then we saw young people sitting on the shoreline with the great big garbage bag,
Sniffing the gasoline.
sniffing the gasoline fumes.
And the damage is done.
Yeah.
Can't be repaired. They're permanently.
And there was a big hullabaloo, shall we say, with the number of suicides that were in that particular town. There was a great deal of help offered. I'm not sure it ever happened, but it's tough, and it's tough also to get people to stay there. Teachers and nurses don't want to live there for any length of time. It's a rough situation.
I certainly understand why they wouldn't want to live there. It's ranks right up there with our residential schools. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is worse.
Worse, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely worse. And they can't restrict the gasoline because you need it for your motors and everything else. So they get it illegally. It's not, I'm not sure if how hard it is to get, but there were enough people that we saw on the beach, youngsters sniffing it.
Yeah.
Jim Ronback, you had a question?
Yes, did you get a chance to try the hot water ponds in Reykjavik?
Oh yes. We don't have any pictures of it, no, but we were in that. It's hundreds of people in it. David didn't want to fog up his camera, so we left it behind. But yes, that's very good. And we didn't mention that we had screech when we were in Newfoundland.
Don't rush out and buy it.
No.
I passed on the screech and I passed on kissing the cod.
Oh yes. Can do without that.
I see Anita has a question. You mentioned that there's a section of Iceland which is where it is separating by a small bit each year. Is one side Europe and the other North America?
The country is splitting north and south.
Oh, it's splitting north and south.
Side is moving. One's moving east, one moving west. It's about 3 centimeters a year, which is what's causing all the volcanic action. And in some years, it's much worse than others, but it's generally not controlled volcanic, but it's subdued.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate Payton. She's asking, did you get to the top of Grandmorn? Is that Grandmorn or Grossmorn?
Grossmorn, yes, that's that's where the Viking village is.
Yeah, she said she'd love to see more of that, and thank you. It was very interesting. She watched a documentary about the pond and found it fascinating.
Yes. And if anybody gets a chance to see Come From Away, the musical, it is really terrific. Yes,
I'm sure it would be. I think that people in Newfoundland are the most hospitable people I've ever met in my life.
They certainly came to the forefront on that. I mean, there's 6,000 or 7,000 people in the town, and they had 6,000 passengers show up.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It was just amazing what they did with Gander. But I mean, my little bit of time that I spent there, I couldn't believe what people were like. I mean, it was just all these, if you were walking down the street and you had a map in your hand, 3 people would stop and say, "Are you looking for something? Can we help you?"
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
4 of us ended up getting lunch from our, a colleague who lives in Newfoundland. We dropped in out of the blue, and he said, "Oh, stay for lunch." Homemade lentil soup, fresh king crab legs, and the special treat for me, a Newfoundland dog with his great big head drooling on my lap.
Val, you have a question?
I just thought I'd tell you, Jim has been to Iceland and Finland because his parents were both born in Finland. So he'd like to claim some Viking heritage there. I don't know if we can prove it, but.
Val, you have to turn your mic on. You're muted.
The Finns aren't Vikings.
Yes, they are. I can send you.
They're related to Hungarians.
Oh, they claim Vikinghood.
Magyars.
Oh, he's got some proof. of
Val,
some
press
sort.
your space bar. Val, press your space bar. Oh,
So it's not working.
It looks like Val is muted.
yeah, you can't unmute yourself, I guess. Ah, that looks good.
Oh, that's better.
Okay,
Oh,
You have to do it again, whatever
do
you
it
did.
again.
okay. I wanted to say, I've also been in Iceland, but only to refuel on a trip from London to Seattle over the polar sea. And that was in 1970. So you know how long ago that is. And my question was that American radar station decommissioned because the planes no longer have to refuel there?
It wasn't radar for that. It was radar for the armies, the Air Force.
For the-
Yeah, it was not a commercial.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
But
it was there.
do planes still refuel in Iceland? I don't think they do, do they?
No,
No,
no, no.
no, you don't need to.
It is a stopping place from North America to go to Denmark and things like that if you want, but that's mainly because people will want to stay in Reykjavik for a few days.
Yeah, right, yeah. So that's the difference 50 years makes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Huh.
There was one little incident when our guide was very excited, very, very excited to take us to this place to see a very unusual bird. And we drove quite a bit out of our way to see this very unusual bird. We got to the place and the lady led us into the barn and David said, well, it looks like a barn swallow. And so it was, but it was extraordinary for them.
And common as dirt to us.
Obviously had flown off course, but he wouldn't tell us what it was before we went. But he was excited to have that inside information.
That's really neat.
Mhm.
So anybody else have more questions or comments? No more questions or comments? Okay.
Well,
Well, Jim? Jim,
we- Sorry, we appreciate the opportunity to do this and look forward to another one in the near future.
thank you very, very much. I'll
Thank
get
you.
your little check and your poster in the mail to you and hope that you get it before you take off.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
And good night to everyone.
Right.
November 2nd, our AGM. And Kate has told me today that what she's going to do for her presentation after our AGM is Wild Vancouver, Finding Hope and Joy in Nature.
Oh,
So
great,
Great, great.
I think that will be quite lovely.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Surviving the pandemic through nature.
Audrey.
So I
Good
click
night,
on
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
leave.
I think I have a printout of the DNS people. Do they, is that where there's emails?
What's a newsletter?
Her phone number, her email address? I don't
Yes.
think so.
Yes, it is.
Think so?
Yeah.
Oh, because she does the newsletter.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Okay, we should sign off there.
Yeah.
Now you have to hit this too.
I did.